welcome to another episode of the Beer Parlor. It's been amazing, and it's been quite a while since we had our last Beer Parlor episode. I think our last one was actually about the very subject we are coming to discuss now, where we spoke about the UEFA Champions League quarterfinal draw, looked at some of the fixtures, and then we made our predictions. The first leg of the quarterfinal were played last week, and so we are here to reflect on some of the predictions that we made. Let's see who is trending in the right direction per the first leg results. And then let's reinforce these predictions for the second leg. Let's see if anybody is switching their opinions per the first leg games. And then we'll discuss the classics that we had. Erasmus, I think this set of quarterfinal games is touted as one of the highest scoring since 2013, I think, of one single round of quarterfinal games. How did you find the games? And then we can start talking about them from there.
Yeah, I've been one of those who has been reminiscing over the past Champions League draws where they
Yeah,
were a bit more enthralling, like the PSG Barcelona draws of the past,
yeah,
the Real Madrid Liverpool draws of the past. I've been one who's been reminiscent of them and thought that over the last two campaigns it's been quite boring.
yeah,
But I think this draw is one of the best draws we've seen ever. All the
yeah,
games we were given have been great, and I think it's testament of the fact that when you set up good draws, you have good games. So maybe last
yeah,
season they learnt their lesson and gave us good draws instead of like it's just Milan on one side. So yeah,
yeah.
I think it's excellent. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I felt partially annoyed that the games, especially the two games on the same day, are happening at the same time. Because I want to watch Real Madrid, Man City, but I also want to watch Arsenal, Bayern, and now I'm forced to pick one, which is so annoying at some point in time. And that's the thing about having such good draws, because previously it could be easy to pick one over the other, but now you can't afford to miss any. Right? I think Gary Lineker, who is a former footballer, said he had the City Madrid one on a big screen, and then in front of him on a laptop, he was watching Arsenal Bayern, which
It
is what
was
some people were doing.
it was sort of the same thing for me. Like my mind was fixed on the City Madrid one, but like
Yeah,
somewhere Arsenal one, so that if anything there was a
you
screen.
check the
But I
scores. Yeah.
the funny thing also was that that was the very day I'd returned from New York, so I was very tired because
Oh,
I
yeah.
had any problem over the journey. So I was struggling to keep my eyes awake. And I was like, there's no way I sleep during this match. Like, it's going to be talked about for
You
generations. I should
know,
keep my eyes.
I envy you who is in the UK time zone, who the time zones are a little bit favorable. I have to stay awake till like 3 a.m. to watch some
Oh,
of
no.
these matches. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
like,
think I realized how much the diaspora struggle because when I
yeah,
was in the US, for example, the Premier League games were being played at 7 a.m. I'm not
exactly.
waking up at
Like
7 a.m. to watch a
nobody's
game.
going to watch, right? So it's really. But there's one quick thing before we get into the games. Recently, I think after the games with the goals that we saw, there've been conversation about the omission of the away goal rule influencing expansive football in the out knockout stages of the Champions League. And some people think that it is bad to take it away because now it takes away the excitement or the energy and the edge around it. Some people say it's the reason why now home teams can open up and play expansive football and not sitting deep and trying to be very defensive. And some people say, what's the difference between 3-3 and nil-nil? I think score-wise, it probably doesn't make any difference. But I think excitement-wise for the fans, it really makes a lot of difference. I don't know your take on this as well.
Yeah, it's a very personal take. I, for one, am for the away rules because I think it adds
Oh,
some bit of drama. Because like
yeah,
it means that there's, I think the single reason for me is taking consequence from the first game. We need to take
yeah,
consequence from the first game, apart from just goals, and we need to also be able to highlight the home advantage. Teams who traditionally are stronger at home would also be able to take
yeah,
advantage of this. Like it's. I understand the claims for taking it away in terms of making it more exciting, but I don't think it was less exciting when there were away goals. Like I
Yeah,
remember Chelsea with Madrid when we went to the Bernabeu 3-0
yeah,
up
yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
had,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, you teams have still been able to overcome that. I just think
Uh,
it adds a new dimension which makes it exciting.
I mean, just to throw it out there, UEFA's justification for taking this out was to say the there is no advantage for any one team going into any other team. They try to say they are now have much more in-depth rules to make sure that base standards are reached across all matches, so that eliminates any bias or whatever it is. But anyway, I think that's a debate that's ongoing. We'll see whether or not at the end of this cycle it gives us any new inflections on it. But let's pick the first game. Dortmund versus Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone's team, obviously 2-1 at the end of the day. They were 2-0 up. You had Sebastian Halle picking up a consolation goal, which could be crucial because the next game is in Germany, in the home of Dortmund, and that consolation goal could make a huge difference for them because now they score one goal and they are back on level fields, right? So that game people thought maybe would have been done and dusted. I personally thought it would have been done and dusted by first leg because I felt Atletico Madrid has so much experience. But I think that consolation goal makes it a lot more exciting to watch. Look out for what would happen in the second leg, especially when the second leg is in Dortmund's home.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think you were one of those who was really not looking forward to this encounter. But I think I was telling you
Yeah,
that the beauty of this draw was that the teams who are very close to each other sort of have
are
similar
facing each
strengths
other. Yeah,
are facing each other, so it was more likely going to be KG. But what an atrocious first half from Borussia Dortmund. Um, I think Atletico could have been up by four, and this
it
is
could
something
have.
that we need for a quarterfinal tie. Everyone wants it to be
Yeah,
alive by the second leg,
yeah,
so I think we got exactly what the fans want. And I think there's a world where Dortmund equalizes because I think they struck
yeah,
the post twice towards the
yeah,
ending of the game. So I'm really looking forward to how it pans out in the Signal Iduna. I think Dortmund will be much, much stronger. But I think Atletico goes through because they're a bit more solid in terms of the defending. But if they can get the fans within the stadium to back the team and they can start much better than they did, like the way they ended
yeah.
in the first league, I think they'll stand a much, much, much better chance.
Yeah, I think the thing with Atletico is I see a world where Simeone starts with already his team is naturally a low block team. I see a world where he starts with even a much lower block because he has the goal advantage and he knows he's going into enemy territory, which would make it probably give Dortmund a lot more advantage because Simeone wouldn't be committing too much. And if he does that and he gets punished once, that makes it much more jittery on his end because Dortmund would have gotten the momentum they need to try and kill the game off at home. And so it's a really interesting dynamic to see what Simeone's experience in Champions League football leads him to do in that setup, which is a game now that I'll be looking forward to watch too. Um, let's go to another exciting game which ended up in a 3-2 win for Barcelona. And if you'd notice, the two games on Thursday all ended up with a one goal advantage.
That's
And the two
it,
games on Tuesday were both draws, right? So you look at Barcelona versus PSG, but what a game. And I'm saying what a game because Barcelona takes the lead, PSG scores, takes the lead at home. Barcelona, Gavi's very first introduction into the game, about 60, 70 seconds, picks out a world class assist for Rafinha to finish it off. And then Christiansen comes on, also about what his first touch of the game, heads the ball into the goalpost. And you look at the drama, which is people are calling out Mbappe for ghosting in that game, right? Not pulling up any strength. And I'm not sure your take on this, but I personally feel that PSG could have killed off the game, especially after they were 2-0 up. They couldn't. Barcelona found their way with changes and substitutions back into the game. And now it's much more tighter for PSG to go to Camp Nou and try win this tie, right? So, any thoughts on this one, and what do you expect in the second leg as well?
Yeah, I think this game panned out to be way more exciting than we thought it would be.
Yeah,
Because like Barcelona is in a bit of a disastrous shape, which they've
Yeah,
been picking up quite recently, but it's sort of flown under the radar. And PSG has have not been super impressive, even though they've won all of their games themselves,
yeah,
and the whole drama around Mbappe. I think my thoughts from the game are as follows. First, I think Luis Enrique experimented too much, and
yeah. That's what I was about to say.
he's known to
Yeah,
do that in a couple of games, and usually it works out because he's not afraid to make changes to.
yeah,
But starting in that game,
yeah.
terrible ideas.
Asensio as a false nine as well. If you are starting
Yeah,
Asensio on the wings and playing Mbappe in the center, that probably tactically makes a lot more sense. But Asensio has
yeah,
not been on form. Goncalo Ramos is there. This guy, I've forgotten his name. This French guy, Colomwani is there. There are very exciting options on the bench that you could have tried.
yeah.
I'm not sure why you went for Asensio as well.
Yeah, I'm not even sure, especially given that like he knew that Araujo and then the right back Kunde were going to team
Yeah,
tag on. So you
yeah.
needed to get someone who sort of, I think the whole
It's
point was to
deadly.
get someone
Yeah.
who sort of be
Who
doing the
drops
link
deep?
up. But
Yeah,
obviously the team had been doing that much better. So and Colomwani is someone who plays on the wings, plays on the forward. He's strong. He's
yeah,
very quick. So I think double tagging on them in that way would have created more options because he made it so easy for them to defend against Mbappe. And as good as Mbappe is, you don't want him double tagged all the time. So I
yeah.
think that was the first thing. I think secondly, Xavi is underrated. I think he's hugely underrated. Myself, I had not given him too much respect because I thought, like, you know how the Barca fan base like to hype up
Yeah,
the but I think as a manager, he's really good because he's very good
yeah,
at identifying the strengths of his players and playing them to it. Because if you
yeah,
notice, Rafinha was struggling in the Barca team. And so
yeah,
when Dembele was playing, Dembele was getting
yeah,
minutes ahead of him. He was being moved all around the pitch. And this 16-year-old boy, Lamine Yamal, came to take up his
yeah,
spot. But what he was so good at least, was his ball striking.
yeah.
He's very direct, right? So he
Very,
usually
very
likes
clinical as well.
exactly. So he usually likes to stay as an inside forward, and that's something Barca don't play. So with the new
Yeah,
system on the right, he's playing as an inside forward, and then Cancelo stays on the wing, and I think that has been
yeah,
very beneficial to him. And I think that was one of his best games because he's one
yeah,
of those players who really wanted to play for Barcelona, and we
yeah,
are seeing him do the magic that he does. And it also shows me how much Barca misses a player like Pedri. It was Pedri, not Gavi,
yeah,
who
yeah,
provided
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
pass.
Pedri. True.
Yeah, and I think the last point over here is also that Gundogan is immense or is huge. And for me, I think if Xavi continues to find a way, I think against some of the more elite sides, they are going to struggle.
Yeah,
But if Xavi finds a way to go out of this, they've shown that they can beat Atletico, they can definitely beat Dortmund. I think they're a
yeah,
viable candidate for finals, and from there, like it's really anyone's game, to be honest.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I mean, recently, it's true. Like Gavi's Barca have picked a lot. At least for the past 2 months, they picked up form. Obviously, that didn't look like they're going to win the La Liga or anything, but their performances have become much more consistent. It's funny that you say he's underrated because just today I was listening to a podcast where someone was saying that people are now starting to overrate him to say he's world class based on the past 2 months' performances and trying to use that to wash all the blunders we've seen, all the experimentation and the lack of performance we've seen at the early parts of the season. And and I don't think anybody thinks that Xavi is not a great coach. I think currently, because what he did with Barca last year clearly tells you that he's an elite manager, comes into a team, picks them, wins the La Liga with them. And obviously, against Carlo Ancelotti's Bayern, I said Bayern, Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid, that's like a really tough thing to do. And he won it by a mile, right? He dominated the league and then won it. It wasn't some close chase of a thing, which tells me he's a really good coach. The only thing is that the Barca team currently is some form of dismantled structure that is like he's now trying to put together. And Barcelona is a team that doesn't give coaches patience. And that's the reason why. Because his individual decision to leave, it's mainly because he feels he's not matching the expectation. Not probably because he feels he's not doing his best with the team. It's because there's a set expectation that he thinks he's not meeting, and that's the reason why. And so for me, I think Xavi is a really, really top class manager. He does changes, and he did two substitutions that resulted literally in the two
Yeah.
goals that eventually won them the match. And so hopefully they're able to do it at the Camp Nou. But I also
But
think, pardon?
what's your prediction for the second leg? I forgot we needed to give predictions for uh for all the
Uh,
games.
for Dortmund Atletico, personally, I don't think there's any favorites at this point in time because I think it's 50-50 for anyone up for grabs. If Dortmund is clinical, I think they can weaponize the home advantage to themselves. Is if Simeone puts up his defensive masterclass, Dortmund is messed up because no matter the shot you get, is none of them is getting near that goalpost. But if you look at Barca, I think currently going into the second leg, Barca are the favorites. But I would again say that nobody underestimates Kylian Mbappe. This guy can pick a game and just say, I'm here to make it my show and tie it around and just turn things around. And it's this is the thing, it's a one goal difference. And so if PSG takes the lead, that goal difference is cancelled out and we are back to square one. And so everybody now the game would likely be open. Everybody has to play. So unless Barca scores the first goal to give them some comfortability, they are going to be on the edge in that game at home as well. And I think Luis Enrique would learn his lessons. He's not going to play Asensio in that false nine. He's most likely going to try and put up a traditional front three, which will be much more deadly to defend against than the experimentation that he was doing. Because now Enrique is looking for results rather than some flowery style of football in a way that would surprise anyone. So once he gets the results, he will be happy. Who are you tipping to win the second leg for Barca PSG?
I think I want to start with the Atletico one. I think
Yeah.
Atletico goes to Signal Iduna and wins.
Okay.
Mostly because I think when you think of Champions League ties, you think of personalities. So
Yeah.
it's not just how well the team plays. And Dortmund plays well. They have a stylistic kind of football, but they lack individuals who could change the game. If they have people like Sancho step up on the day, because we saw at the Amy, he's very, very talented, but
Yeah.
he really struck out the game. And we've seen it
Yeah.
in time teams who play sleek football, but you have like Champions League teams like Inter Milan who
Yeah.
know how to defend very, very well
Yeah.
and have good structure and have big individuals. They always turn up. I think Atletico has those individuals. Morata has been showing up. I think Griezmann
Yeah.
a talisman
Yeah.
who can show. And I
Griezmann
think
is really, really great.
yeah, and I think Dortmund lacks those people. So I think Atletico goes there, maybe even wins or manages to keep it at 0-0 and go through.
Yeah.
Um,
I think people are underestimating the importance of defending. These days, we want excited football so much that we sort of equate defensive teams to poor performing teams. But that's not the case. So far as you are not
no,
scoring them, at least it's at nil-nil, right? Which is a
yeah,
point
yeah,
before they even try and score you. So it's a very
yeah.
important thing you've
I
mentioned.
think we get a classic Atletico masterclass for me.
Yeah.
But the second game is much, much more tricky to call. I I feel embarrassed to a degree that I still don't think Barcelona goes through.
We'll go
If it was
through.
any other team that had like a 1-0 advantage away from home, you would be calling the
Yeah.
tie for them. But the fact that people still think this tie is open should tell you a lot about the state of the Barcelona team and how much people believe in it. But this is the Champions League, and like I said, anything can happen. I think
Yeah.
um, people agree that it's a poor version of PSG that showed up, and
It
that's been
was.
their
It was
story.
a poor version of PSG.
That's been their story this season. I think they were able to perfectly silence Mbappe, but I think in the second leg they will have to deal with an Mbappe that's like
Yeah, he's
way
there to
more.
prove a point. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a close call. I think it depends on the PSG that shows up, but I think I have Barca slightly ahead because of what Xavi was able to do on the ninth and neutralize like the PSG tactics. I think
Yeah.
PSG needs to show up, and they've not shown me enough that they can always do it. And if
Yeah.
Mbappe, who is the Hail Mary, can be silenced on a night like that. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think PSG has a chance, but it depends on the team that shows up.
Okay. I mean, let's go to the two games that were played on Tuesday. First, let's start with Arsenal, Bayern Munich. Arsenal were fantastic in that game. Possession, their drive, the chances they were creating. Bayern Munich just proved that sometimes you don't need to be the best at the game. You just need to be clinical, take your chances, capitalize on the experience, and do what you need to survive. And for me, given that Arsenal couldn't blow Bayern away at the Emirates, I am really finding it difficult to think that they get to do it at the Allianz Arena. It's not impossible, right? With Arsenal's form, it's not impossible. My only problem is that game at the Emirates, there was no single Bayern fan in that stadium. Bayern didn't have any support, not even an away support, let alone any reasonable degree of support in there. And the reason was obviously because their fans had been banned, right? You go away from them, you go away from home as Arsenal, and now you are going to deal with the Allianz Stadium where they would be filled up to a very significant degree, massive support, massive cheers, the energy will be there. And they know they've lost the league, the Bundesliga now. And so the best way to go around it is to prove is to be very, very proactive and get a result at home. Because the most devastating thing for Tuchel would be for this Bayern team to be kicked out of the Champions League at home in front of all those fans. And so I think they have a lot on the line to get them through that game. And Arsenal's single window of silencing that hope was to get a full Emirates Stadium with Arsenal fans and lash them 4-0. Arsenal didn't do that. They ended up with a 2-2 scoreline, which takes them back home with zero advantage for Arsenal. So what was the point? Like we could have just gone to the Allianz Arena to start the matches from there.
No, I mean, like, if you if you look at the pre-discussion that we had before the game, like,
Yeah.
not like we gave Arsenal a lot of chance. So I think them being
No,
able
I
to pull
didn't.
off a 2-2 draw is a plus for them. I think it just shows that they're a team who are matured and they can go toe to toe with some of the best in the world. I think there are a couple of things I want to point out from that game. I think Tuchel got it right, then just let it go. Like Leroy Sané was
Yeah,
terrorizing the defenders, but as usual,
yeah,
he was not being super clinical.
yeah,
And once he took him away, the pressure was off, and Arsenal was giving the Arsenal fullbacks were given the license to bomb
yeah.
forward and
To Rome.
be able to
Yeah,
create these kind of chances. I think Saka is still their most dangerous player,
most dangerous
and
player by
yeah,
far.
if you find a way to silence him, it's almost as if Arsenal don't have another game plan. Because as much as Martin Odegaard tries, it was very, very hard to break down Bayern from the middle. They were able to turn over the balls um, very, very much and hit them on the transition. I think what
Yeah,
plays into Arsenal's hand in this game is that they most likely will be playing on the transition. And if you have a certain Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus starting, as well as Saka and Odegaard, I think they are a threat on the counter. And the truth is that Bayern have not been great at defending teams on the counter this season because like they bomb all
but
their fullbacks forward and their middle is not as
yeah,
secure as it has been over the years. So I think that's where Arsenal stands the chance. I think the thing about the
yeah,
fans, we should be careful not to overinflate the importance of it. I think the Bayern team was really, really good. And if you get a 2-2 draw in the first leg, shows that you have something. They need to go out there and show the experience. It's just about showing a mentality that they can withstand the opposition and all the
yeah,
narratives in the stadium. And I think if they're able to do that, they come up with the results. But I still think this goes Bayern's way. I'm unsure
yeah. For
how
me,
Arsenal actually beats Bayern. Yeah.
this is how I'm judging it. Look at last year when Bayern faced City. There's a team lashes you first leg at home. They clearly take an advantage to the Allianz Arena. They don't mind that game. They weren't under pressure going into that game. This Arsenal team, We are saying they are gaining experience, but they are still heavily inexperienced in the Champions League. And going away from home to a heavily dominant side like Bayern Munich, under that much pressure, is not the ideal situation you would want for yourself as Arsenal at this moment in time. They needed to be much more clinical to kill off the game, at least have a goal advantage going to the Allianz Arena. So you give yourself some amount of room to grow into the game. Now you can't take chances growing into the game because if you are lashed before you pick up the tempo, it's done. And just like you're
Mm.
saying, Arsenal is a heavily transition team. I think people underestimate Bayern Munich because that's entirely their MO. With the runners, Gnabry, Leroy Sané, with now Harry Kane dropping in deep to link up play for these wingers. Everything they do, get the ball, run. And so what it means is that Arsenal's defensive line cannot be pushing up to create that compactness. And the only way you can create that compactness is either pushing your defensive line up or dropping your forwards deep. And if you drop the forwards deep, then Bayern's defense now has much more freedom to be playing balls, to be pinging passes, etc. So it was a very tricky situation, which is what we saw at the Emirates as well, that created those chances. And I'm thinking, if you don't have an advantage going in there, you now have to make one of two choices. You push up the line, open up the spaces for Gnabry and Sané to be running, or you stay deep and now you are much more struggling to create chances, which gives Bayern the room to keep on mounting pressure. And anytime Bayern is allowed to grow into a game, they may not be pairing as a team currently, but don't underestimate the individual brilliance that is stuck within that team. Musiala, Muller, Gnabry, Sane, Kane, each and every one of those guys can have 1 second moment of brilliance and the game is done, right? So you don't give them that many chances, and I think that's what pains me for Arsenal because they went into this game thinking they were going to be clinical and dominate. Some people were even saying they will score by an 8-0, 8-2, and all that. Here we are 2-2. But like you said, I also take Bayern because I think Arsenal is going into this game much more under pressure than they should have gone in, and that's going to be costly for them.
Yeah,
Finally, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I think like I agree with you largely. I think the individuality for the individuals to turn up for Bayern is way more, and I think they wouldn't want to lose in the Alliance Arena. I think if they
Yeah,
lose, she'll just like he just goes somewhere in there. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I call a Bayern goal.
yeah. Finally, the massive game. For me, I'll just say what a game. The game between Real Madrid and Manchester City. Now, everybody was skeptical about this game because of the last seasons. I think they are the team that has played the most in the out rounds in the last seasons of the Champions League that we've seen. And in the last two seasons, they beat each other to go and win, right? So these are two teams who are world class, very experienced, very exciting teams, and they've in each of them have undergone certain models of rebuilding that make them significantly different from what they were last season, which makes it much more exciting going into the games as well. But City, Bernardo Silva, brilliant free kick idea, picks up the wrong side of the keeper. I genuinely think the keeper should have done better, or at least the wall also should have been constructed better. But then picks out that free kick and then they score. um, uh, all the other goals coming up, you see Kamavinga's run, brilliant run, gets the deflection, gets the goal. You see what do you call it? Phil Foden. That goal that he scored is a very textbook goal of Phil Foden, similar to what he scored against Manchester United. And people again say that Haaland ghosted in this game. I'll talk about it in a bit. But what was your take on that game? I felt it was very exciting. And I think the one at the Etihad is going to be even far more exciting. I don't think, for me, I still don't give City the edge at the Etihad. I think Madrid will sting them. Yeah. But
I
yeah,
think I think this City team it's been proven this season that they are not the same as last season.
yeah, they
Let's
are
not
much more
forget,
porous.
yeah, they're much more porous. Let's not forget they have a lot of like new profiles who have come in and still trying to
Yeah.
gel. Whereas last season, most of them had come in, and that season was like the season where
Yeah,
they just needed.
yeah,
Yeah, when you have players like Gundogan gone, players like
yeah,
Mares, like I think
yeah.
it does limit your
Kyle Walker
options.
was injured. De Bruyne was
How-
injured. Yeah,
I think it does limit your options to a huge degree. Like players like Matthias Nunes, Kovacic, this season they've
yeah,
shown that they can really step up to the high levels at which City plays. And look, Real Madrid is a boogie team.
yeah,
Literally, I never face Real Madrid and think, oh, we have that.
yeah.
Like quite clear to see that in that game, City was playing much
City
better.
were playing better. Yeah.
How they
Just
overturned the
out
game
of
was
nowhere, Madrid will score. Out of
yeah.
nowhere, they would score.
And I think what helps Madrid, and you could see it when they play, is Madrid believes they are Madrid. It's like there's a
They
special
believe in a
tonic.
story. Yeah.
Yes, it's like
They believe in
because
a story that it is theirs.
it's theirs.
They
Like
come with their chest out.
the way they were casually like strolling the ball around, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
against City, being
Yeah.
very
You
very
guys are
casual.
you guys are behind. And you don't
Yeah,
seem to care. You don't seem to be
yeah,
chasing the game.
yeah, and they were playing their own game. And I
Yeah.
think another thing I took from the game was that Vinicius
Playing center
is top
forward.
is top three players in the world. I know
Yeah.
we make a lot of noise about Haaland and Mbappe, but
Yeah.
Vinicius, three players in
I
the
think
world, consistently,
yeah.
consistently showing up in the
He's a
games.
very consistent player. Yeah.
He single-handedly carrying the attack, and his link-up play
Yeah.
with Rodrigo in that game was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Just the two of them passing through, and they are very
Yeah.
quick. They are very
Yeah.
strong. Their ball striking is. I think his
Yeah.
decision making sometimes let him down. But Vinicius is top three
Yeah.
player in the world. I think there's a
Yeah.
world where Vinicius is far more valuable than a Haaland. I think if
Yeah. I
we are
think
to list
so.
the world,
I
you
think
put
so.
Vinicius, and they don't give him enough respect. And this guy is just what
No.
22 or 23.
Yeah.
So for me, once you still have players like Vinicius, Valverde, like such a wonder strike. That only Real Madrid can score those kind of goals, like
Yeah, like
casually.
out of nowhere, switch of
Yes,
play, boom, scores. End of story.
yeah,
Right.
and
But
I mean,
I think Carlo Ancelotti's setup was a bit weird because this time around he played Vinicius in the inside forward in the more central position and played Rodrigo on the wing. And you'd be thinking usually it's the other way around. Vinicius is on the wing, Rodrigo is central, or he plays both of them at the edge of the box in the front too. This time he moved Bellingham to the right hand side and then he was playing these guys. I don't think City prepared for Vinicius in a central position, and so he was making those very, very bursting runs, very fast paced runs, and they were struggling to cope because they were thinking he would be on the wings rather, and Rodrigo would be in there. And Rodrigo is also very hardworking because he tracks back a lot, and that helped in the defensive work that he was putting in because Madrid or City then would have that overrun if it was, let's say, a Vinicius who would prefer to stay up front. And I think tactically it helped as well because you would want your most deadly or clinical player to be up there and pushing the defense back, which is what Vinicius was offering in that central position as well. I don't know whether Carlo would go into the second game playing a similar tactical position, but I think those tweaks up front really, really helped in the game that they played.
yeah, I think it's all to play for. It's all to play for in the second
Yeah,
leg for me. I think you see in those games how Bernardo Silva turns up, and Foden is
that
proven to
guy's
be
the
Foden is
second
proven
Bernardo
to
Silva. Yeah,
second guy who like steps up in those games.
yeah,
But I think they were missing the brilliance of Kevin De Bruyne. I think they were missing the
yeah,
leadership of Hogan. And I think
yeah,
sometimes the defense was a bit shaky. Ruben Dias was a
yeah,
bit suspect. And I think it's just impossible to defend against Vinicius and Rodrigo. And
yeah,
given the games against Liverpool, against Chelsea, where against Arsenal, where like City was very very vulnerable to counters, especially within the
yeah,
channels. I think that just because like Madrid know the thing about Carlo Ancelotti is he's very quick at identifying the weaknesses of a setup, and very, very good at
Yeah,
exploiting. So for Madrid, it doesn't matter when they play home and away. It's the same thing for them.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think it's fun to play for. I think I have Madrid slightly ahead for the tie,
yeah,
because Militao is coming back, so they have
yeah.
he's still short
A
on
much more
defense.
defensive block.
Yeah, so and I think players like Cruz, Modric, their experience cannot be downplayed within this game.
Yeah. But I mean, one thing about Erling Haaland, I think people were saying Haaland ghosted in the game, similar to Mbappe and all that. But I think people don't recognize when strikers do out of possession stuff and don't necessarily score goals, but then they contribute to the team structure. Because when City were trying to build up from the back and they were having issues, Ortega started going long and wanted Haaland to drop deep and hold up play. But he was struggling to do that. And so at certain points of the game, he started just staying deep in the box, pinning the defenders back. And when he started doing that was when those spaces at the edge of the box started being created. The very space that Phil Foden exploited to score that is goal. If not for the fact that Haaland is pinning those two centre backs back there in the box, one of them would definitely rush out of that position to block that ball. The only reason why they felt reluctant to do that is because you wouldn't leave Haaland there and come for Foden, because Foden is equally brilliant enough to pick up a pass. And once you leave 1v1 versus Erling Haaland, he will definitely bully you, whoever you are. And so those out of possession things that he did obviously also helped in terms of creating much more spaces for other players at the edge of the box to play. And that changed the tempo of the game in favor of City as well. So I think it is true. Erling Haaland would probably not be the best link up play forward. He would probably be the player who you think is not that engaged once he's not scoring 2, 5 goals in 3 matches, etc. But when you look at his tactical discipline, especially when he's given specific instructions as to what to do, engage defenders, and he's a very physical player, so he just gets ruffles you up, makes you think that you need to be very, very physically intense. But also, people fear him. So anytime he's staying there, defenders don't like to leave him there. You don't want to be hoping that he will be offside, because he would make an inside channel run, play himself onside, and you are done. And when he does that, he's quick, he bursts the pace, and you are never catching him. And so these are things that he tends to do, which I think sometimes people should start recognizing, the out of possession stuff or the non scoring stuff that some of these strikers do for their teams as well.
I don't think the criticism of him, especially in that game, was unfair. I think the thing we know Haaland for is that City does not need him for that out of possession stuff, because like they usually control most of the ball anyway, so they need him to put the
Yeah,
ball at the back of the net, and a lot of their plays being sacrificed just to allow him to function in that way of form. So I think,
yeah.
yeah, there's a world where he affect the way in which the goals are scored. But I don't think he influenced the game that much as you'd want him to do. I think if Haaland does not show up for the second leg, they lose. If Haaland turns up, I think they stand a very good chance. He needs
To be
to
fair, I also think the big Champions League games, even from last season, that City won on their way to
doesn't
the
turn
final,
up.
Haaland doesn't turn up. I don't think
Yeah,
he's been the
I
driving
think
force of that team.
in this game, if he doesn't, they lose. Like in all honesty, I think
Yeah,
last year
his battle
brilliant.
with Rudiger, I think Rudiger dominates him really, really, really well.
Yes,
Rudiger
yes.
has proven to be like
And that's
I had never seen Rudiger in that exceptional light until his move to Madrid. He
oh
was
yeah.
at
I mean,
Chelsea for years. I'd never
he
seen him
at
in
Chelsea he was
that
saying
light.
at Chelsea, I mean under Lampard he was atrocious, but in our Champions League run, he was saying
Yeah,
he was our best defender. He silences the best players. Like so
yeah,
for me, like I think he needs to turn up. Like and
yeah,
last season he didn't need to turn up, but he contributed a lot in the lead up to it. I think this season they are
yeah,
not clinical as they used to be, and we
yeah.
need to see the rest of him. But I think once Vinicius and Rodrigo are on the pitch, like those guys are
I
mad
mean,
talented. Their ability is
Ru-
unmatched. unreal. Their footballing
They rarely
abilities.
have a game where they are silenced. Even if Madrid is losing, those guys are just causing trouble left, right, center.
Yes.
and and I think Pep is also, people are starting to say he's underutilizing Alvarez, because Alvarez is a much more dynamic forward than Haaland. Alvarez will drop in deep, find pockets, play, and it's also extremely clinical. Just like Haaland, you think Haaland is, Alvarez is very, very, maybe physicality wise, he's not tall as Haaland is, but if you want to draw defenders out of position, be able to link up play properly, play within the pockets, Alvarez is probably the better striker to opt for. Pep seems to trust Haaland still, and so let's see how he sets up for the second leg at home. But yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, I also tip Madrid to beat. And the funny thing is, Madrid has never won at the Etihad, which is the very reason why I think this time around they will beat them. Because they always have this weird story around their Champions League runs where they have
Yeah.
to make that magic happen. And I think
Yeah,
this time around
but I
they'll
think
be able to do it.
if Madrid beats City, like it's all the way to the final.
Yeah, it's
For
it's
me.
all the way to the final. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for hopping on. The second legs will be on Tuesday and Thursday. We would watch them. By then, we would be able to know who is making it to the grand final. We'd be able to semi-final. Sorry, we'll be able to assess the contributions and the predictions we've made here, and then we'll be able to look at the semi-final draw and tell you who we think will be making the grand final. Stay with us on the beer parlor. Leave your comments in the comments section about who you also think would make it, and we'll see you on the next one.